Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Come Away. Come Away is a 2020 fantasy drama that follows Peter and Alice. Once their older brother passes away, they attempt to help their parents, and along the way, they find themselves on diverging paths of home and fantasy worlds. Now, Come Away is based off of the premises of Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland, hence Peter and Alice, and comes from director Brenda Chapman, who has previously directed animated films like Brave and The Prince of Egypt. Mix that in with an all-star cast, including David Oyelowo, Angelina Jolie, Michael Caine, and Google mbatha-raw, and I was more than intrigued to see what Brenda would bring to a live-action fairy tale such as this. Plus, the story sounded not wholly original, but an original take on old fantasy tales. So I was definitely looking forward to this screening tonight. And ultimately, I think the film is okay. It's middle of the road. There's a lot to really admire here, but it never really lives up to the potential there. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. I have to say my biggest positive actually is this idea of bringing these two classic children's tales about escaping in one way or another and applying them to a real life situation and real life troubles. We've seen over the years several children's stories deal with the pain of loss or home problems and having these kind of fantastical elements take them out, and how children use imagination and creativity and fantasy land to escape real world hardship. That's not a new idea. I think that this film does a nice job of taking these known properties and plugging them in somewhat realistic type of ways that fit this much darker narrative that we're presented here, and it served for an interesting narrative overall. I do think our cast is quite strong as well. David Oyelowo is definitely the highlight for me personally. He has the most room to let loose, if you will, and he shines with the material. Angelina Jolie is strong as well, though her performance is a little bit more subdued. And our children actors do a lovely job. Michael Caine and Google mbatha-raw both have very minor roles, and they do what they need to do while they're on screen. They're just not on screen very much. I think the film looks very nice. The production design, particularly, is beautiful. We get these glimpses of this creative world building and these beautiful shots of the landscape or the effects. And I do think the heart of the story does ring true and shines through the final product. Even as we get into those negatives, the heart is still able to find its way. And I think it will resonate with viewers because of that strong heart it carries. So then, what doesn't work so well when it comes to Come Away? Well, my biggest negative is that this is too dour. It is just too dark, if you will, and not dark in kind of a evil, mischievous type of way. Dark in it feels pretty oppressive throughout the entire second act. I mean, there is a long stretch where we don't have near enough fantasy elements. We don't have nearly enough fairy tale moments. And when we do get them, they're not big enough, they're not magical enough to overcome just the oppressive, sad tone that we deal with for such a long time in this film. And I think if we're going to apply a fairy tale to a hardship story, you have to give us those magical moments. The fairy tale elements come few and far between. They do plug them in to just real world scenarios that people, the kids just running around the streets, or we meet someone at a pawn shop. I think a clear reference to one of the fairy tale characters, but they're just not fantastical enough, and they don't help you to escape anything. And that leaves you in a weird element of who's watching this movie? I think it's much too sad and dour for children, and I don't know that it necessarily is appealing to adults either. I think maybe it's aimed at like a teen audience, but there's not enough energy or life there, I think, to really captivate them either. So I don't know who this is ultimately meant to please. And just kind of adding to that point, when we do get those fantastical elements, there's only one or two that truly kind of transport you. Otherwise, they feel a little bit too mundane. I'm not sure if it's a budget constraint, which it very well could have been, but if you're going to take us there, take us there. And it never really pushed to that level. In addition, I really enjoyed the concept of bringing these two fairy tales together in a real world application, but it doesn't quite blend as well as you would hope. I didn't need them to be separate per se, but some of the intertwining didn't quite work for me, and that goes for the story at large. There are some big story elements in this film that didn't work for me. Some of them are allegories and references directly to the fairy tales where I'm like, whoa, wait though. This is way too dark with what actually just happened. Particularly with Alice, there's something that happens in here that I was like, wait, we just went there. Okay. And then it leaves us in this really kind of awkward place of dreaming and reality versus the escapism. And once again, it's not handled quite as well as, say, Pan's Labyrinth, that is also very dark and requires a child's mind to take them out of trauma. This one, however, it doesn't elevate it to that type of level. And then finally, our sound design wasn't great, particularly the mix on the voices. I do think the musical score was beautiful and very fitting for the material, but I found myself struggling sometimes to really understand what certain characters were saying. So it seemed like the voice mix was a little bit too muted throughout the film. So overall, Come Away is a beautifully crafted film. It looks very nice, and I love seeing a diverse take on these fairy tales, a diverse take on a period piece fairy tale like this. We've rarely ever seen that, and it was beautiful to take in. Unfortunately, Brenda Chapman wasn't able to bring this beautiful fairy tale levity to live action as she has been able to do with animation in the past, and it leaves for an overly somber fairy tale film. So overall, I think this is worth checking out, but I would wait for a rental. It has some nice messaging and deals with a lot of sophisticated issues, but it's never able to fully realize its concept. So that is my review of Come Away. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on my latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Come Away? Or have you even heard of this one? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!